All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this week's edition of the Arkansas Broadband Leaders Network, or ABLN. We'll get started. And I do want to thank Cam last session for stepping in and driving the bus for our last session as I was out of kind of traveling for work, but appreciate all of Cam's efforts as our digital opportunity manager, and we'll hear from him shortly. All right, so with that, quick look at the agenda for today. We're going to have some brief updates. I do want to take a look at the Arkansas broadband map. That's something that we have rolled out. Really, it's been probably almost a year now that that's been out and publicly available. So we'll take a look at that for those who may not have seen it before and kind of look at some of its capabilities. And for you, if you are aware, it'll be a reminder of what's available and kind of what you can do with it. So we'll take a look at that. And then for content purposes, we'll look at the Arkansas Fiber Academy program at UA Hope Texarkana, and that'll be a very interesting presentation. So good content today, and we'll go through it with you. So first, I want to say thank you for your partnership with our office. The state closed the third and final round of bidding for the Arkansas BEAD program on Wednesday night. So at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the state closed its last bidding round. And so in essence, we have, as of the close on Wednesday night, we've completed a fair, open, transparent, and competitive BEAD application process. It's been as you are well aware, it's been a very long time coming and getting to this point, but we're not done. We have to finish strong. We have to go and score. Actually, the scoring is already underway of our round 3 applications and get those evaluated. And then we have to deal with were there any locations, right, in the state that did not receive a bid through rounds 1, round 2, round 3. And we got to figure that out because we have to make sure that there is a grant award that covers all 84,000 locations, even if they didn't get a bid right in our first 3 rounds of bidding. We have to find a solution for that. So, because we cannot, we have to make an award for every single location, right? So that may require some negotiations. We have to go see if there are any left and what does that number look like, and then work through that process with our ISPs. And so, still got to work on some things. There could be potential policy changes from NTIA, and we have to evaluate if there are policy changes, how does that impact anything, and work through that. It's still our goal, and we'll look at a time chart in just a second. It's still our goal to have our final proposal out for public comment in the middle of June and submit our document to NTIA by July 4th. So I guess the short story here is we're almost at the end of the BEAD process as far as getting our applications in and getting awards done. But thank you for your partnership in this process. We couldn't do it without all of your dedication to helping this process be successful, all the way back to the challenge process, right? And working on the map and working through that whole deal. We couldn't have got where we are today without going through that process. And all of you have played a great partnership with this office in helping to accomplish one of the best BEAD programs in the country. So just want to say thank you from our team to you for everything that you've done and being by our side through this whole process. Okay, so here's a look, kind of a brief snapshot of the immediate timeline specific to the BEAD program. Okay, so we anticipate releasing, and you've seen some of this through round 1 and round 2. We put out some stats, right? So we think we'll be able to release overall participation data probably next week, middle of next week, April 30th. And if it's available before that, we'll do it before that. But we think April 30th, we'll be able to have that out for everyone, and then have sort of beyond one level beyond participation, actual aggregated results available the next week on May 7th. And again, as I said a second ago, it's our goal to have what's called our final proposal document posted for public comment. That's going to include the statewide award listing for all 84,000 locations. That'll be a public document available online. Again, targeting mid-June for that. That's when everyone will know kind of how the preliminary selections went, which ISPs won, potential grants and different areas of the state, etc. All that public mid-June, we hope, and then ultimately submitting that document to NTIA for their approval by 4th of July. That technically would put us 6 months ahead of schedule. This week, NTIA released a programmatic waiver that added 3 months of time for every single state as far as the deadline to submit their final proposal to NTIA. And so ours moved from October 4th to now January 4th is our new deadline. But, short of some sort of programmatic changes that come down from Washington and NTIA, it is still our goal, again, to submit our document by 4th of July. So with that, wanted to take a second this morning, maybe just a couple of minutes, and kind of bring something old back for you. So again, the Arkansas broadband map is the most detailed broadband map that Arkansas really has ever seen in our history. Through that map, you're able to find out the internet options that are available at every single home and business in the state. You can find out if a particular home or business is part of a grant program, either through the state or a different federal grant program. We talked about that before. And it's all publicly available for you, for anyone. It's accessed through our state broadband office website. And so just want to take a couple of minutes. We're going to bring it up. I'm going to show you some of the capability, what it can do. For some of you, this is just it's going to be something you've seen before, and that's okay. To have a nice refresh on it, if it's a tool that you can leverage or use in your life or business. And for some of you, it may be something brand new that you're seeing for the very first time as we do this. And so I'll click on it, we'll bring it up, we'll take a look, and feel free to ask questions about it as we work through. We may look at an address or two. If you want to give me some addresses, we can do that and plug them in, and we can show you kind of how it works. So we'll do that for a second here. Okay, so here's what it looked like. And just to reiterate, right, if you go to our office's website at broadband.arkansas.gov, and you click sort of on this hamburger menu here, right, this brings up a side menu, right? The first option right here, I want to find internet options at your address. That's how we framed it for the general public. But again, going to our website, hamburger menu, I want to find internet options at your address. Do that, and it brings up the Arkansas broadband map. Very easy, very easy. So a couple of things we can do here. The first thing you're going to notice, all over 1 million locations in the state, okay, are all located within our map. All right, so every location has a color coordinated dot that goes with it that mean different things, okay? And you have a little panel here that you can turn things on and off as far as locations. And so, and again, the colors mean different things. So if you see leaving the red and blue locations on the map, all of the red and blue locations, okay, those are representative of the 84,000 locations that are included in the BEAD program that we're running right now. So the providers, the 48 different ISPs and partnerships that are participating in the BEAD program are bidding, right, on these 84,000. I know it looks like a few, but as you zoom in, right, more become, in view. These 84,000 red and blue locations are the ones that are up for bidding, okay, in the BEAD program right now. I'll turn those off for a second. A lot of green, all of these green locations, okay, homes and businesses across the state have been subject to a grant award already before we even get to the BEAD program. Either one of our state grants that have been issued through 3 different rounds or a separate federal grant, okay? So all of these green dot locations have a grant attached to them already as of today. Okay? And then all of the gray locations that you see across the state have, by definition, broadband service, and again, broadband is just a term for high-speed internet, right? broad bandwidth, all the grayed out locations meet the federal definition of high-speed internet or broadband. Currently, the definition is 100 by 20 or 100 megabits per second download, 20 megabits per second upload, and that's a little technical. But the short answer here is if they're marked with a gray dot, that means they meet the federal definition of broadband or high-speed internet as of today, okay? So that's sort of the basic layout of the map. We're all over 1 million locations on the map. Each have a color coordinated dot associated with them. That means different things. Remember the red and blue, part of the BEAD program that we're doing right now. Green already has a grant attached to it, either state or federal. And then gray currently meets the federal definition of broadband. So what I'd like to do, if someone wants to use the chat box real quick and give me an address, what I want to do is key in the address, and we're going to click on the location and take a look. And what's going to happen is when we click on the location, after we put the address in, there's a couple of things that happen. So I want to illustrate that for folks real quick. So if someone want to take a second for us, input an address for us here into the chat box, and we will take a look at that address on the state broadband map. And if people are shy today, that's okay too. I can pull up, my address or something. We'll do that. But I want to give an option for someone to look at an address real quick. All right, we'll give it just a second longer, and then I'll input my address. We'll go from there. All right, got a couple coming in now. Let's see. All right, so we'll start with Jeff. Jeff was the first one, so we've got 11347 Lee Springs Road. You see how it's already, so it's defaulting, right? It's trying to find, it automatically tries to, software tries to find an address that would match what you're keying in. So he later says it's Pine Bluff, and you can see it's the first one, right, that's coming up. So if you click on the address from the menu, the map is going to zoom in on that location. Okay, so let's click on it. All right, so zooming in. Right, you saw how it kind of keyed in on that particular location. What you have to do is actually click on the dot. Okay, click on the dot, and when I do that, you're going to notice that the left-hand side menu right here will change. Okay, you click on the dot. Notice it's green. That means something. We'll talk about that in a second. You click on the dot, the left side menu changed, right? Okay. So what that means, and you can kind of, when you click on the dot, then you're able to sort of confirm that what you clicked on is the address that you were looking for, right? So 11347, 11347, so that matches up. Now it's green, which we said a second ago, means that it was, this location is part of a grant that has already been issued, again, either through the state or through the federal government. That's why it's green. That says funded right here, okay? So if you scroll down, if you look, it's going to show you, okay, funding program, which means grant, right? So this particular location is subject to a grant already by Windstream. So that Windstream, Arkansas, technically, was the grant recipient, okay, for that location through the RDOF program, Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. That's a federal program through the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. So this is an example of a location, likely a home, probably, right, Jeff, that is subject to a grant award by the federal government through that particular program already. Now, because it's not our program, we don't have insight necessarily as to whether or not the construction to that location has taken place yet or not. It might have, it might not have been, because it's not our grant. We don't have insight into that. But as providers update their reporting to the federal government, that information filters down to us, okay? So over time, as Windstream builds out to that location, and they do that successfully, and they report that to the federal government as part of their reporting that has to take place, the federal government updates their mapping that happens, or send filters down to our mapping solution that you see. Okay. Additionally, for every location, you see where it says providers, it will show you what options you have available to you at that address, at that location. So T-Mobile has filed with the federal government saying they offer a licensed fixed wireless solution for that address. Viasat's available, Viasat, HughesNet, and Starlink, right? So all those companies have said, we provide service to that location should the resident or business owner want to subscribe to that particular service. But as you can see, nothing here outside of the Starlink system, which is 220 over 25, which technically doesn't really count right now as far as what is available on the current map for folks. This location was included in the grant because it didn't have anything that met that 100 by 20 definition, right? So that's one right there. Let's look at another one. And please feel free to ask questions as we do this. Okay, so Akili has one. We'll look at that. 113 Spruce Street, Louisville. And you see how it's, again, the software is working for you. Click that location. We're going to zoom out and on and zoom in. Okay. Quite a few locations here. Sometimes you got to drill down a little bit, right? It's looking like it wants to kind of ping that one. So remember, we have to click it, right? In the map, and it changes again on the left-hand side. 113 Spruce, 113 Spruce. I'm just double checking. All right, so we have another green location, another grant issued for this particular location. Look down. Okay. Towns Telecommunications. Okay. Is the provider who was issued a grant for this particular location. And this one says, we would say EACAM. All right, so enhanced ACAM. That's an example of another federal grant program. Okay, so this was not a state one. An example of another federal grant that was issued to Towns Telecommunications to build out high-speed internet to that location. Same thing as before. List of providers who are saying that they offer service at that location. Should the customer want to subscribe to them? And there it is. So again, this is examples of how the state map works. Really good information. Again, we'll tell you if a home or a business is subject to a grant already, or if it's going to be part of a BEAD program that we're doing, right? Or if it already meets the high-speed internet definition, right? A gray dot. And anytime you click on a dot, you can learn how I like to say it is you learn your broadband story for that location, right? And so not only the type of grant, if it is a grant, but also what providers offer service there. Okay, so if you like the service you have, it's fantastic. If you're not a fan, maybe of the service you have, you can look at alternatives and see who else offers internet for that particular location. So a great resource for our stakeholders and general public. And again, all publicly available for you. So please use it, utilize it, show other folks. And anytime, if you would like for us to demonstrate the map for your organization or a neighborhood group or whatever, just let us know. And we're more than happy to do that, walk people through it, because people need to know these types of tools exist and are available. And actually, we were talking as a team earlier this morning, we may do a whole session, an ABLN maybe in the next couple of sessions, where we walk through all of the tools that are available on our website for the general public. And this would be one of those. And so again, just let us know if you'd like for us to do more about that. Okay, we're gonna take these down and get back to the presentation. So with that, and again, all this is here for you in the email that follows. Let's do real quick. Jeff had a couple of questions come in before we go to Cam and his update for digital opportunity for today. Let's see, Jeff asked, so did CNIs require 1 gig service down and up? So require is tough. How would I answer that? If we're talking about the BEAD program, okay, one of the goals of the BEAD program itself, right, is to try its best to find a provider or an ISP um, that can offer 1 gig symmetrical service to a community anchor institution, to a CAI. Okay, so if we looked at the state map and a particular CAI already has access, if they want to subscribe to a provider who can offer gig symmetrical service, then they would not be eligible as a part of the BEAD program. Okay, if a CAI did not have access to a gig symmetrical, then it would have been included as one of those red or blue dot locations in the BEAD program. Okay, but there is no general like state requirement or federal requirement just out there that says every CAI has to have a gig symmetrical. Right? That's, as far as I'm aware, that's not a law at the federal or state level. It is a part of the BEAD program itself. There's a difference in between what the BEAD program is trying to do versus what are just the general laws right out there. So I hope that helps answer the question, Jeff. Let's see, Sylvia, do you have the timelines on when those already covered grants were awarded and dispersed? Yeah, that can get really complicated, Sylvia, because not all the programs operate the same way, right? So, and again, it's hard, it's more difficult for us to get insight into those federal grant programs because they're not ours, right? The relationship exists strictly between the grant awardee, so the provider, and the federal government in that particular program. So we don't have insight into it. And then how, they don't get all the money up front in a lot of those programs, right? It's dispersed over time, either monthly or so forth, as they build out in different phases to the award areas. And so it's hard to aggregate that information on the whole for folks. So typically what we try to do is just one-offs, so one-on-one. So if someone has a specific question about a specific program at a specific location, we try to work and connect people with that particular grant awardee and try to figure out some data for those folks. But on an aggregate, it's very, very difficult to try to get out, but we always try to improve things too. So Cam, with that, let's do updates from Digital Opportunity Manager, and then we'll go to the folks at Hope Texarkana. Good morning, Cam.
Hey, good morning, Glenn. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, thanks for that question, Sylvia. And so going through slides, no real material updates on our DE related programs. We're going through process, working through it, but really no updates for you guys this week. The question Sylvia asks is a great conduit to county committees. We got a new survey that went out on Tuesday, the 22nd, for our county committee leaders primarily that are on the call, that are here. We're going to be reaching out in the next couple of weeks via phone, via email, to try and get some 15-minute conversations with you guys, talk about things, how things are going on the ground, how things are going within the committee, how you guys are feeling about the activities of the committee. And thank India for her hard work on that initiative, and she's supporting this. And you'll either hear from me or her in the next few weeks via one of those means. We really appreciate the work of committees. The local action matters. That work is going to be a great conduit for our programs as they launch in all 75 counties, as skills centers, classes get stood up, devices get distributed. And we're going to, over the next few months, honestly, as these things ramp up, we are going to be really, really intentional about engaging with county committees. There's Hal Vandiver set a great example. I think his event was last week or the week before. stood up an event around digital opportunity with especially harnessing all the stakeholders, the key stakeholders, his Goodwill, his library. Had a great article in the newspaper that we can't show because it went dark today. But we want to keep lifting that work up, and we're going to be really intentional about speaking with you, helping build local action, momentum, and supporting the work you guys do as these things grow on. Glenn, you go ahead to the next slide. And I want to introduce our featured speakers from the University of Arkansas Hope Texarkana. Dr. Achille Moses Israel, and potentially Mr. Johnson. And Achille, you can take it from here and drive the meeting, or um, or if you want us to drive it, we can. But I'm gonna pass to you. Hey, Achille, I can't hear you right now.
There you go. I'm fine if you take the presentation. No, doctor. I get that a lot. My name is smarter than my degrees. My name is Achille Moses Israel, and I am the Director of Business and Industry Relation at University of Arkansas Hope Texarkana. And we're going to be talking today about the Fiber Optic Technician Program. Um, this is a program that just started this past year in September. We are currently on our third cohort of this program, and it was something that was brought to us by our community. One of our board members works at an ISP telecommunication company, and there was a definite need for one, upskilling of folks who were currently in the industry, but then also attracting new folks to the business. And so they came to us, and we worked together to try to bring something that was going to be useful to both the employer and also the worker. Go to the next one. All right. All right. So the fiber optic program, we do this in partnership with the Arkansas Fiber Academy. We are the fourth program of the academy. And as you can see on the right there is our instructor, Keegan Johnson. He works at Hope Water and Light. We really wanted to make sure that we got someone that was in the industry. And he came to us because we were working with several employers, telecommunication companies, with the electric company that was now embarking on broadband, with some of the local ISPs. And he sort of rose to the top as someone who, one, had a passion, really has a passion for the industry, but also about making sure that we appropriately pass on how to work in the industry, the skills that are necessary in the industry. And it's been a really great relationship. And I know that if you all heard Steve Cole talk about this in his program, the instructor is really, really key if you're ever looking to do something like this. It's really going to make sure that your students get it. They have a cohesive cohort, and they come out of the program feeling comfortable and confident in their skill set. The program is both classroom and hands-on. So that's something that's important for folks. They really wanted to make sure that they got in and are able to actually do the work, not just sitting looking at a PowerPoint presentation. But they are looking to do fiber optic technicians to install, to maintain, and troubleshoot fiber broadband to both homes and businesses. Right. These are some of the folks who started with us. Hope Water and Light has been a definite partner. They've both allowed us to use Keegan as our instructor, but then also they have supplied us with some materials for the class. Walnut Hill Communications, they were the ones who first alerted us to the need in the industry, and they've also put their employees through the program. And so our first cohort, we really wanted to make sure that we were capturing the right information to make sure that when our students graduated, they would be good, at least entry-level employees. And so we had a great test run the first go round. SWAT or SWATCO, Four States Fiber were two of the others that were helping us design both content and the competencies that would be needed for the workers. Of course, working with the Arkansas Fiber Academy, Office of Skills Development. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. AR Connect, you all were absolutely helpful in trying to identify ISPs, so that way we could understand what the needs were, not just here locally, but across the state. What were the needs for workers? Was there a capacity? Was there a gap in the system where we wanted to make sure that we did not create a program where we were going to reach saturation and then have to close a program down after a year? This started as a local or regional project, and it became statewide. And then now we're also getting folks from outside of the state, thanks to some of those connections from both the Arkansas Broadband Office, but also the Arkansas Community Colleges, which runs the Arkansas Fiber Academy. Right. So free, thanks to OSD. One of the things that was really great for our program is that the Office of Skills Development decided to underwrite the program. So tuition and certification fees are provided at no cost to the students. We are also able to provide them with a toolkit, PPE, and boots. So that way, when they do get a job, they have a toolkit to get them started, and we can send them on their way. And it also helps that the students don't have to worry about how they're going to pay for the program. They just need to come in committed and ready to work. Right. A little bit about the program. So we started it with 9 weeks. We ran through the first cohort, and it had folks who were, most of the folks were already in the broadband industry, but they needed some upskilling. What we found is that to give a regular lay person that was coming into this that did not have a background in fiber or broadband, we wanted to give them a little bit more time. And we also added an OSHA and a CPR certifications. And so we wanted to extend that time. The classes are evening classes. What we're trying to do is capture folks who are unemployed, but also those who might be underemployed, who want to get a chance at a new industry that will better support their families. The classes are Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and we have about 10 students per class thus far. And there's a good mix of curriculum and hands-on, but a good portion of it is hands-on, and we're hearing that the students are really enjoying that. Okay. Entrance requirements. We say that there's a prerequisite that you have to have OSHA and CPR, but we provide those, so the students are taking those at the same time or just before they take the fiber class, but they have to be at least 18 years of age, have a valid driver's license. We're asking that they are able to carry up to 50 pounds without assistance. Very significant, probably more than any of these others, that they can't be colorblind. They're working with a lot of wires that are different colors, and so that is going to be essential for the job, and that they just have to have a high school graduation or equivalent. All right. So our curriculum is provided by the Fiber Broadband Association. It is their optic path fiber technician curriculum. I just want to say one point to this. When we started, we were actually we had a working group with employers in the industry looking at developing our own curriculum. And so we've gone through, again, looking at the competencies, what are the things that the students are going to need to know to get into the job. And so we already had all of that laid out. But one of the ISP leaders informed us that there was a pre-existing curriculum that was already certified across the country. So it would be something that wouldn't be just locally certified, but it could be something that that students that once they graduate, they could carry with them. And so we review the Optic Path curriculum with the employers, and it was something that really worked with us. It provides 144 hours of classroom instructions and hand-on skills training, and it makes sure that the students are able to install, test, troubleshoot components, and it includes fiber to the home. So that last mile of making sure that we get install for broadband. Okay. So the employers that we're seeing that are interested, and we're seeing some employers coming from far outside of our area, but a good portion of them currently are local employers or regional employers. We're seeing not only just the internet service providers, but electric companies and telecommunication companies who are now entering the space. And we're also now starting to see construction contractors who are supporting these organizations to broaden their broadband footprint. Some of the types of jobs that folks are able to get include, not limited to, but include fiber installers, fiber broadband technicians, splicers, and folks who are doing maintenance and troubleshooting. Keegan, our instructor, Keegan Johnson, our instructor, is on the line. Keegan, if you want to jump in on any of these at any point, absolutely do so. Okay. All right. Some of the things that we found where we changed the program, I talked about changing it from a 9-week program to a 12-week program, but then also we expanded the program from a regional program to one across the state. And like I said, now we're starting to see folks who are coming from outside of the state who are interested in the program. A lot of that advertising, in thanks to the Arkansas Fiber Academy, they've been making sure that they put the information out far and wide. The program, when we ran the first class, we knew that some of the folks had some broadband or some internet knowledge, internet installation knowledge. What we found is that a lot of them were versed in copper, fixed copper. And so this was actually even helpful to those folks who were currently working at ISPs, but those companies were now broadening their servants to broadband. And so it was not just good for the newbies, but it was also good for folks who were currently in the system. And we're starting to see other employers asking about, if this is going to be something that is good for their folks. And so we're in conversations with some of them. Some of the other sort of below the green line or effective findings that have come about because of this, we're starting to see that internet service providers and others in the space, once they've gone through the class or they're in the class together, they talk more to each other. So it's not just everybody's in their individual organizations, but they now have a network of peers across the region and soon to be across the state. So there's a level of camaraderie that they have after going through the program. Much of that is due to our excellent instructor, but it's probably one of the few opportunities where they can do some cross-pollination across organizations. And some of the other things that we're starting to see is that it's helping with sort of more of a standardization of how some of the business is done. Okay, next slide. Hey, this is just a quote from one of our employers who had his employees go through the program. This is Adam Dixon. He is from Town Hills Telecommunication. He's also a board member here. He said the custom training our employees received through UAHT helped us boost productivity and improve safety on the job. It's been a game changer for our company. And we really take that to heart because that was what we wanted. We wanted to make sure that the things that the students learned was viable and useful to the employer. And we did do a lot of focus on safety through OSHA and CPR first aid. One of the things that we're proud of is that when the students graduate, they're not just graduating with the fiber technician certification, but they also have OSHA 10 and American Heart Association First Aid CPR certification. And so they've dramatically beefed up their resume. So they have a skill set, but then they also have 3 nationally recognized certifications that they can pack and take with them. The QR code links you to how to contact us about the fiber technician program. My email address is there, Akili Moses Israel at uaht.edu. Our instructor is Keegan Johnson. We can also connect you through the QR code. We are located at the Hope campus of UAHT, and down below, just in case you're not familiar with QR codes, our website address for workforce development is there. Okay. If you have any questions for me, also I see that Keegan has said the same thing from our instructor. We're happy to entertain those.
All right. Thank you, Akili, for that. And before we take a gander at the chat box, because I think there is one follow-up I do want to have to Sylvia's question from earlier. Sylvia, I think you had your hand raised for this presentation. And Sylvia, we're not hearing you at the moment. While
How's
you work
this?
on, yes, now we can hear you.
All right, great. Hey there, Keely. Good to see a
Hello.
neighbor and fellow engaged member, as well as a couple of our other Hempstead County folks. So I had a question as I was sharing this program with potential applicants. They were under the impression that this may be a lot of travel involved with this particular career track, along with being on call or a lot of overtime. So if you all could share about where is a employee's service area, and that being on call workload or work burden. And then lastly, regarding the programmatic uh, cost, what is with the OSD covering those components? What is the savings of a participant on that tuition, on that toolkit, PPE materials that are being provided?
Yeah, with I think it's about $3,400 that they're saving with their PPE, their boots, and their and the cost of the class. And so they're saving a lot of money, not having to pay the tuition, or the testing fees or anything like that. So it's between 330, I think it was $3,000 and $3,400 is what we calculated, because we were looking at if we had to run this program without OSD, that's what we would need to charge for the program.
And then Keely, I can answer her first part of her question about kind of the hours.
Okay.
Is that correct, Ms. Sylvia?
Yeah. What type of hour burdens there are? Like, people, I think, were equating this career path to linemen out on in the field, and so whether there's a lot of things pop up and got to be on call, and then, like I said, the service area where folks work.
So I know there's kind of like multiple different categories. Typically whenever you're taking on a job as say a traveling splicer, it's typically underneath like a contractor per se who does a lot of work for multiple different ISPs independently. But if you go to work directly underneath say a power utility or a ISP, you're really going to be within the bounds of their service territory. Whereas like companies like Windstream or Towns Communications, they have a very broad service territory. Um, as far as like hours worked and overtime, it's really based on kind of the business model that they serve and they run under. I can speak for Hope Water and Light the way we operate. We are an electric utility, so our first priority is during restoration. If there's power out, power comes first, internet comes second. And we kind of focus on our commercial or anchor institutions prior to our residential accounts. Just, and that means of, they, shopping centers need cash registers to work and they need their lights on back, quickly. Hospitals need to be able to communicate, send out, all their communications properly, same with, libraries, schools, and et cetera. So, there's my normal work schedule is, 7 to 3:30. There's some times where it might be, I might be at midnight, and there's some times where we might work 7 to 3:30, go home, eat a meal, and then have to go back to work for a planned maintenance window and that could be 8 p.m. to 8 p.m. the next day. It just depends, on the size cable and kind of the extent of the damage. But our business model is to make sure everyone's online. Most of our maintenance windows and planned outages are typically in the hours that a consumer wouldn't be online or on the internet. And then if it is like an anchor institution, we do contact those anchor institutions prior to taking them offline. You know, uh, just to make sure that they're aware of anything that they might have ongoing in the pipe for their normal business operation. So it's I hope that kind of answers it in a way, but it's kind of real dependent on the business model that the ISP wants to operate. From the electric utility, that's just the internet side of it. If it's an electric utility, we also use fiber for substation communications, gatekeeper communications for meter reading. Our water treatment plant uses fiber, water towers use fiber. So if those go out, that's the equivalent of power going out because, as the utility, we need to keep an eye and keep a monitor on our system as a whole. So our fiber communications for our electric utility standpoint is very high priority. So.
Yeah. I'll say one thing to that, Sylvia, when we were looking at this program, because we looked at the other fiber programs, one of the things that we wanted to do, because originally we were looking at this, it was regional. We wanted to have a job where if a resident wanted to be local, they would be able to be local because it was not so much a traveling job. Now, there are traveling jobs in this industry, but there are some jobs that are stationary. So we wanted to make sure that that was an option for folks. One thing we are looking for, we are looking for other employers because we're starting to get employers that are from outside, students who are from outside of the area. We're wanting to connect with other employers who are looking for employees who will be doing this kind of work. So if you know of, and then folks are starting to come to us with that. But if you know of internet service providers, telecommunication, construction, or electrical utilities that are looking for these folks, we have students who currently have jobs. We graduated a cohort and they are now looking for jobs. And so we want to make sure that's one of the tenets that we get them placed. So we'd be happy to entertain any company that is looking for employees.
Let's see. It looks like Sylvia had a follow-up question around probably in a general sense, what's the kind of general pay range for this type of, role? And then is it, probably largely depending upon the particular employee or employer, whether it's a contracting company or, a co-op, et cetera. But generally salary, generally per hour, maybe generally a range.
Yeah. So the information we have gotten from the state, it's about 62,000 a year or $30 an hour, but we know that that range varies widely, depending on where you are in the state. And so the southern region is typically going to be lower than that for an entry level. The closer you get to the center of the state, you get closer to those numbers.
Okay, very good. Let's see. Yeah, quick follow-up while we wait to see if there's any additional questions into the chat box. Jeff had asked about when is the next cohort training session, and looks like Akili answered, looks like the next class starts May 19th. So throwing that out there for folks. Going back real quick while we wrap and wait for any additional questions, back to Sylvia's earlier question about sort of timelines around grants being awarded and dispersed and kind of the mapping that goes with that. As I said, it is tough to get a true read into the grants that we're not responsible for at the federal level. But one of the interesting things that we are going to do with our map that we'll probably look at in an upcoming session where we walk through kind of all the tools available on the website, especially for the BEAD program itself, those 84,000 locations, we will be tracking those in real time. And so what you'll see specific to the red and blue dots on the map is that as our BEAD projects are underway, and on-site visits happen and we check the work that it's going on, you're going to see in real time those the progress that's made will show up on our map, the state map for everybody to see. So you'll be able to see as things progress and move forward in the BEAD program, real-time results and location colors change and stuff like that. So we're excited about that, to have that transparency in real time as the BEAD program rolls out. And so we will talk about that more perhaps during another session there. Let's see, Hunter asked, can you speak to the connection of the UA Hope Texarkana program with others in the overall Fiber Academy, Akili?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we meet monthly to troubleshoot, share information, share employers, try to give each other support. We also talk a little bit about how our programs are either connected or overlapping. And I think you might have heard when Casa talked about it, there's some students who may be considering both taking our class and their class. So it's making sure that we understand enough about the other programs so that way we can, one, let our students know what the differences and similarities are, but then also the other thing is, if someone's working with an employer in a different program, we are going for different jobs for our students. And so there's not a competition there. And so that's where we can sort of share the folks that we're working with. Hope Water and Light might need a lineman. We don't offer that program, even though they're connected with us. And so we might connect them with CASA to make sure that that happens and vice versa. Did that answer your question, Hunter?
I was going to say likely so, and normally she responds.
Yes,
very
you answered
well.
my
There
question.
it is. Yeah, there it is. Thank you. So, all right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being with us today, and I'll follow up with Jeff in just a little bit. But thank you to Akili and Keegan for being here, and everyone for joining. He asked, so Jeff, is the fiber training, is it first come, first served?
A little bit. We do go through and look at one, are they Arkansas resident is sort of our first priority. Two, we look at folks who are unemployed or underserved as a priority, because what we're trying to do is increase the number of folks that are in the field. So, if, you have, a job that's going to sustain you and your family, you just might get beat up by someone who needs the job a little bit more. So that way we can put another person in the workforce, and two, increase the number of folks who are in the field.
All right. Thank you, Jeff, for that question. Again, Akili, thank you. Keegan, thank you. Everyone else for joining today. The follow-up email will come from our team shortly with all of the slides and links, both from us and from Pope, Texarkana. So with that, if anybody has anything, please reach out to us, email, call, and we will see everyone in 2 weeks with very much, we'll likely have some data to talk through about round 3 of the B program in 2 weeks, and we will see you then. Thank you.